we did all that quicker than usual.
Because we're such an advanced class. Your ego probably.
That's one possible reason.
Many of us have scripts. Or we all have the same one.
Talk briefly about the appendices. I want to make sure that we're clear about the difference between feelings and emotions, because we're going to talk a lot about emotions. So what's the difference between feelings and emotions?
Emotions have dialogue.
Yes. Dialogue. The difference between feelings and emotions are like the difference between pain and suffering. Okay?
Suffering being optional.
And emotions being optional. The deal is that I can have a feeling about something, and it's a feeling, and that's perfectly legitimate, and we have absolute sense that everybody should have their feelings and feel their feelings, and that's all fine, and there's no problem with that. But what usually happens is our mind kicks in and starts telling us all sorts of things, and it's really the parent that starts telling us, like, well, you didn't deserve him anyway, or you'll never find another one like her, or okay? And, or you should have known better, huh? So we can easily escalate feeling into an emotion. The sure sign of emotion is drama. Drama is pure emotion. A lot of drama added to the feeling, but drama is all emotion. And of course, that's what human consciousness is all about. I mean, look at soap operas. It's all about drama and getting emotional, and even news nowadays is nothing about it. It's mostly about tearjerkers and trying to make you get emotional. And even SportsCenter always has a 5-minute thing on every day where they try to tell you about some poor pathetic guy who's been rescued or didn't make it or something, to make you cry, and and that's all drama and that's all emotion, and humanity likes being emotional. They seem to love being emotional, because if they're not emotional, there wouldn't be anything, they think.
And dialogue can be too, I think, because I'm working with other people, that constant chatter on what you think they're thinking, they're going to do, that whole thing. Yeah. is a real script dialogue. Script and emotion and kid are indelibly bound together. Okay? If you're in script, you are in emotion, because what's going on is your mind is your kid is telling you something about what's about to happen. The example I gave. If you're in script, your kid is telling you you're going to get fired. If you're a spiritual adult, when your boss calls you in. If you're a spiritual adult, you're probably wondering if you're finally going to get the raise you've been deserving. So we talk, feelings are fine, but we talk about emotion, we're talking about the drama and all that stuff that goes with it. I want to mention the ways to develop spiritual consciousness. You're not going to get out of script. You're not going to stop believing script. Remember, I said that, pointed out that the way to end this catch-22 is to stop the belief. But you're not going to just recognize the belief and stop it. The human being can't just recognize the belief and stop it, because it's so deep and such a strong belief, and it's being reinforced daily by human consciousness. So we will have to get some spiritual development gear in order to tear up our scripts. And that's why this work is spiritual work. I like Barbara's quote from the front of the book about working on our relationships is the way to work on ourselves spiritually. So, what we see, in AA, the standard joke is, why don't you get into a relationship so you can get driven to work in the steps, like a relationship to make you work the steps. So, in the same way here, relationships, we use our relationships with ourselves, with significant others, and with our kids to help us grow spiritually. And so we're going to need to have some spiritual help in here to do this work. And we're going to need to develop more as we go along, and you're going to need to develop a lot before you successfully tear up your script. And there are three important things that you can do to help increase your spiritual development. And one is a regular meditation practice. Very important to start now and develop a regular meditation practice. For those of you who have one, great, you already know the value of it. For those of you who don't, I would suggest that you start the practice of trying to meditate for 3 minutes every morning. And it's not a big deal, and we don't have to. For all of us whose scripts are, I'll never get it right, or I don't know how to do this, or, so you won't start. There's no wrong way to meditate except not meditating. But one perfectly reasonable way to do it is to sit down and perhaps read something spiritual, a paragraph or two to set some tone, and then watch your breath for 3 minutes. Set an egg timer. And for 3 minutes, or a kitchen timer, and watch your breath. Watch the breath come in and watch the breath come out. Just be peaceful and watch your breath. And 12 seconds after you begin, when you discover you're all thinking about something, just notice what it is you're thinking about and go back to watching your breath. Don't get upset. No comment about it, no drama, no dialogue. Just say, thinking. And notice what you're thinking about and go back to watching your breath. And just do that practice for 3 minutes. And I will never tell you to increase it to 4 or to expand your practice to anything else, but you will do it all by yourself because it feels good. So you can start there. Or if somebody else has a better or another way of doing it, I'm just saying it's that simple. And the 3-minute exercise is quite sufficient. It's helpful if you do it at the same time and in the same place every time, because then your body-mind mechanism gets used to it. And going to that place at that time and sitting down already brings you towards meditation because it's a habit of doing that. And the deal is that you sit there for the full 3 minutes, even if you're smelling smoke, because your mind will tell you you're smelling smoke. You will remember everything that you needed to do that you haven't done. You will, just ignore your mind and start there. And it will make a difference. It will make a critical difference in your life. Okay, the second technique for growing your adult is to learn spiritual truth. We talked about just a drab of it here, a little bit of spiritual truth, but in order to understand the lies and replace the lies that the scripts are based on, we need to have the truth that corresponds to the lie. For instance, I can casually say that everything the parent says is a lie, because I know that no statement that has supposed to or ought to or should or anything like that in it that thinks it should be different than it is right now can be true. It's a spiritual truth that everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be in this moment. And so therefore all shoulds and ought tos and stuff like are lies. But that's a truth that I know and have experienced. And so we need to learn the spiritual truths and play with them and develop them until we get them down here. Normally intellectually is a start, but we need to get them deeper. We need to, what Goldsmith called, learn the letter of truth. And then you can use some of that truth to meditate on when you're meditating. And the best way to do that is to read or listen to the works of masters. Read books written by masters, or listen to classes or talks given by masters. And I will suggest that you don't want to read popularizations of the works of masters, because if the person who wrote the popularization is not a master, then he did not understand what the master was saying. It's just that simple. Something is lost in the translation, even if it's English to English. So listen to the masters, or read the masters. And the third thing that helps you grow spiritually is to hang out with people who are doing spiritual work, to hang out with higher consciousness. When you're hanging out in human consciousness, you get drugged down. If you're hanging out in higher consciousness, you get lifted. If you are blessed enough to be able to sit with an enlightened master, you get lifted so high, and that's unquestionably the shortest route to enlightenment is just sit in the presence of an enlightened master. But sitting with people who are consciously pursuing spiritual growth will help lift us a lot. You know, if you walk into a room full of depressed people, it's depressing even if nobody says anything, right? It's just the consciousness. If you walk into a room full of angry people, you know they're angry and your anger comes up. Even though nobody says anything or does anything, you know what's going on. And if you walk into a room full of joyful people, you just start humming, singing a little bit because you know what's going on. If you hang out with people who are concerned about all the stuff that the human consciousness is worried about, you're locking yourself into that consciousness. And if you hang out with people who are knowing the truth or working on knowing the truth, you'll get lifted. And I have spent 29 years going at every opportunity I've had to wherever I can go to be with the highest consciousness I can find in the moment. Gurus and masters, away teachers, away teachers, within reach, I'm there, to hear what they have to say. My whole life has been about actively pursuing and hanging out with people that are higher than I am. So, and we support all those here, all these three things. We have 3 meditations here on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday evening, half-hour silent meditations. The schedule for that is also on the website under schedules. But we have 3 meditations here a week. We also support learning the letter of truth. We have in the library next to the bathroom, there are 15 or 20 Goldsmith books, and there are 350 Joel Goldsmith tapes, and 200 tapes of Robert Adams, CDs of Robert Adams, my guru, and 100 tapes of Barbara Mull, who brought through this work. And it's a library. It's all available for you to borrow. You just sign your name on the card and take it for a week or 2 and come back and throw a buck in the basket. And there's also, we've been doing some work here, some specific work on pointing at the moon, which is really a lot of work about indicating the truth. And there's some books back there on the back table next to the Script and Kid book that you can look at. There's a lot of truth in that book, and that's also the book that we're using for our Monday night work here. We have the Monday night class here is about learning the letter of truth, and expanding our understanding of truth, deepening that. So that's going on here. And the third thing about hanging out with higher consciousness is that you're doing it right now, but choose your friends from this crowd, and choose the people you hang out with from this group or the other group, or people that are doing this kind of work. Hang out with high people. Now, I don't know, in 29 years of actively pursuing this, I don't know a fourth way. Those are the only 3 things I know that help grow spiritually. Okay, we talk about secrecy. It's based on this, but don't go out there looking for support, because it is the nature of human consciousness that if you go out there and you bring a spiritual truth that is above the person you bring it to, they will find it necessary to tear it down. And they just invariably will find it necessary to tear it down. And if it's new to you, you may lose it because they may talk you out of it, or your kid may hear the doubt, or you may get some doubt about it, and you may lose that truth. So the answer is that when you learn a new spiritual truth, keep it inside. Take it inside and hold it inside. And don't offer it to anybody. If you have a spiritual teacher, you can share it with your teacher, who may be able to enhance it for you. But other than that, keep it inside. And someday, when it's yours, when you've realized it, not when it's yours intellectually, but when it's yours down here, you will be demonstrating it in your life. Because now it's your consciousness. Okay, that truth is now one that you know, and you will be demonstrating it. And then people will see that you're demonstrating it, and then the ones who are ready for it will come to you and ask you for it. So you never need to go out there and offer any truth to anybody. This work has never been announced anywhere. I've never invited anybody. I sponsor people who've never done this work. I've never announced this work to anybody. The people that are supposed to be here are supposed to be here. And I don't ever talk about any of this stuff in any of the AA meetings that I go to. This is not for sharing. This is for close, internal, personal, spiritual work. When I came back from my time with Rashneesh in India, I stayed silent for 9 years. I didn't sponsor anybody, I didn't talk about it. I still don't talk about it much. So keep it quiet. And let me also say that body work often opens things up for you. It's more for the kid work than script work. And past life work often opens things up for you with respect to script. Allows you to see where the script came from, so that the kid can see that understand what happened. And we have an Artist Way class that allows you to learn how to play with your kid and do stuff like that. And Diane has one that's starting just in a week or two, and I think there's flyers there on the coffee table. And if you have something that's just so painful that you don't want to deal with it here, it still needs to be worked with, and private counseling is good for that. Sometimes there's some stuff that you need to work on a one-on-one private intimate thing, so we have no argument with private counseling. If that's what you feel like you need to do. Any questions about any of that?
What are the three things that you suggested for doing with the meditation?
Meditation, learning the letter of truth, and hanging out with higher consciousness. During one of these tendencies, there's some discussion on that in Appendix B. All right, let's start the work. That's all the background we need, and it's all in the book. There's nothing that I said that's not in the book, I don't think. Feel free to go back and read anything you want anytime. But now we'll do the first step in carrying up scripts, which is to discover what the scripts are. And if you all of the books turn to page 54, I think we're just going to read around for a little bit. We spent a lot of time writing this stuff. So,
What page?
54.
It might be 47.
New book, Script 101 workshop.
Okay, 47.
You're not going to find it there. You're not going to be able to read along. It's all different. That's why I said you need a new book.
But this is the new book. It is the new book.
No, this one is
47. 54. Oh, I picked up a book up there. I did too.
Apparently there's two printings.
This is my page 54. What does the heading say? Is it number 2? Script 101 workshop? Yeah. Okay.
All right, what's going on here?
I have 47. We have 54. Okay. Oh, yeah. This one,
Somewhere. Don't have everything good in there. We'll discover.
The people who are getting their script read.
No. Not me. I got 24 people, 54, right. Page 47 will never get it right.
I do that.
All right, so you've had the script events, all right. All right, let's start reading. Would you start read a paragraph around the room for the first 2 pages, please?
Sure. So basically start here, right?
Yes, start on Script 101 workshop.
Script work begins with identifying our hidden scripts, emotional dialogues about what we believe is going to happen to us, and their corresponding resistance behaviors that we compulsively indulge in to prevent people from reading our scripts. Next, we learn to recognize when we're involved in a script event and how to determine whose script it is. We want to develop the ability to always catch ourselves when we're about to have a script event. The step that begins to set us free is taking 100% responsibility for our script events. We admit that we caused them. Taking responsibility empowers us. If we are the cause, we can become the solution.
We also learn how to manage script events.
This means that we become able to look at and work with script events rather than being carried into the meltdown by it. Just getting this far already reduces the emotion and pain in script events by over 50%. Pain does not go away until we master forgiveness. And when the pain has gone away, we are able to drop all concerns about it. The goal of the Script 101 workshop is for each of us to have the working knowledge of the first 5 script steps. This means that we will have identified our hidden scripts, listed the resistance behaviors that go with each script, identify our fantasy scripts, learn to recognize when script is in gear, learn how to determine whose script it is.
Begun taking responsibility for our own script events, learn to manage script events, begun practicing forgiveness, and begun practicing dropping all concerns. These are lofty but realizable goals if we truly apply ourselves to this work.
Okay, so that's sort of the overview.
Can I ask a question? When you learn how to determine whose script it is, what does that mean? If I'm in a script event, it's my script, isn't it?
Well, it could be, sometimes I could be having a script event and trying to get you to be my leader. We'll get to that. That turns out to be step 2, which we'll get to next week, actually. We'll clarify that. All right. The next 4 pages or 5 pages are the definition of what we're going to be doing for the next week and how we get started on this work. So let's just continue reading around the room for a while, and I'll then go through it.
Page 56.
49.
The 7 steps of script. Uncovering our hidden scripts. First, we have to uncover our hidden scripts and the resistance behaviors that go with them. We will need to ask someone else to work with us on this step. Someone who is not emotionally involved is often able to see our patterns more clearly than we can. You can choose someone in the workshop or someone who has done this workshop previously.
We make up 2 lists to help us uncover our hidden scripts. 1 is script events. The first list helps us uncover our hidden scripts. We go back over our lives and make a list of the 10 events that caused us the greatest emotional pain. They may have been so painful we would almost rather have died at the moment. Each event should be a specific instance, not a generic one. For example, if your father always shamed you, don't just put that on the list. Choose the particular time when his shaming you hurt the most.
We describe each event briefly in our own words. We make no attempt to be reasonable about it. We describe what it felt like when we were in the middle of it, when they were doing it to us. For example, I felt like my mother thought I was worthless and stupid. We try to remember and discover the internal dialogue that went with each event. What message were we hearing or telling ourselves? The dialogue will begin with, I will always, you will always, I will never, or you will never.
We use this list to try to discover our hidden scripts. Every emotionally painful event is a script event. So we have just made up a list of our 10 worst script events. The list will usually have 1 or 2 reoccurring patterns. The events are really hidden scripts being read over and over again with different players in different situations. Several of the events will have the same basic patterns and the same emotions. The goal is to identify the patterns.
The events on the list are so emotional because our kid was in terror. Our partner helps us to try to figure out what we, our kids, were afraid was going to happen. Invariably, we were afraid of some form of rejection. We're trying to discover the specific kind of rejection we're afraid of. Abandonment, ridicule, not being seen or heard, not being big enough. The descriptions of the event will often include words that will give us a clue as to the script. This is why we don't try to be reasonable. The kid's fear is not reasonable, and it's the kid's view of the event that we're interested in. It's the kid that was afraid something was going to happen, that was result in being rejected and dying.
It's helpful if we were able to identify the internal dialogue that accompanies the event. These dialogues can take two forms. In one form, we are hearing our kid telling us that I will always, I will never. In another form, we are hearing our needle, or the scolding aspect of human consciousness, which we sometimes call a universal parent, telling us, you will always, or you will never. Several examples of scripts were given in the introduction. Yet we'll get a click when we find the right words. It's what we've been hearing or telling ourselves all our life.
Okay, so that's the first list. There's actually two lists that we're making here. One is the direct method. This is the direct method for finding your scripts. If you make a list of if you make any list of emotional events, you're making a list of script events. See? Because emotional events are script events. So if you make a list of the 10 worst script events that you can remember throughout your entire life, then you've made the 10 worst emotional events, then you've made a list of your 10 worst script events. Okay? And to the extent that you can remember the feelings, and you can remember what, there's fear involved, you can remember what you were afraid was going to happen, or to the extent that you can uncover what it felt like, what you thought was going to happen, or what you figured was afraid of, well, that's very useful. Do you understand what we're talking about here? Do you see how it works? It's not complicated. Good. Now let's go on.
Persistent behaviors. The second list helps us discover our resistance behaviors. These are all the behaviors we compulsively indulge in over and over, even though they don't work. Identifying our resistance behaviors is often a useful tool for helping us identify our hidden scripts, because each resistance behavior is designed to prevent one of them from being read. And we can often guess what kind of script a particular behavior might be designed to prevent.
We take a look at our life scan, making a list of resistance behaviors. We do them compulsively. They are based on motives such as being liked, accepted, valued, etc. They are designed to prevent rejection. They haven't worked. They do not gain us anything, usually quite the opposite, and we often know it.
We describe the nature of our resistance. For example, I can never say no to any request for me to do something. We ask what would a hidden script probably be that would call for that kind of resistance. For example, we might not be able to say no because we were trying to be valued. We try to discover the dialogue. For example, I will never be valued. Asking those who know us well can help us in developing this list. Often they know what our compulsive behaviors are better than what our compulsive behaviors are better than we do. We go over this list with our partner. We take each resistance behavior and look at our possibly partial list of our scripts, trying to see which of the scripts is designed to prevent. We find one that confirms both the script and the resistance behavior. If we can't find one that it seems to correspond to, or if we haven't been able to come up with a list of scripts, we can speculate about what kind of a script that resistance behavior might be designed to prevent. This might trigger something that gives us more insight into the first exercise.
After we've gone through the resistance behavior list, we may find it helpful to go back over the script event list to see if we can now recognize the scripts that underlie them, that the resistance behaviors are trying to prevent. Eventually, we want to come up with a complete two-column list of our scripts and our resistance behaviors. Each script will have one or more resistance behaviors which are designed to prevent it. Each resistance behavior will have one or more scripts which is designed to prevent it. This list will be an important tool in the work that follows.
Okay? So now let's talk about that. What I want you to do is make up both these lists and then select somebody in this group, or perhaps if you were led to come to this group by somebody that has done the work before, pick a person that you trust that you are willing to share these lists with, and sit down with them and go over these lists. So the deal is I've made a list of my 10 most emotional situations. And it's a brief list. This is not a 4-step. This is just a brief list, in which you describe the facts about the event and what you felt, what the fears were, and what you felt. But it doesn't mean you don't need to describe You don't need to get into the drama of it, or be sure that your partner understands just how painful it was, or what things set it in motion, or anything like that. So it can be fairly brief. I find that 1 or 2 pages, well, 2 pages probably is plenty of paper to write down the 10 events. And you read these to your partner one at a time, and try to see if you can see what it was that you were afraid of. You listen to the words, you listen to the dialogue, and you try to identify what it was that was going on. What was the fear? What were you afraid was going to happen? Why were you so emotional? And often, just in looking at this first list of 10 things, you will see that, that 6 or 7 of them have in common the fact that you weren't going to be good enough, or 6 or 7 of them have in common the fact that you were afraid of being abandoned, or that you were abandoned. The fact is that, the script event is that you were abandoned. Husbands or wives or kids, people were leaving you right and left, and you see that you're being abandoned in each one of these emotional events. And you see that you're being laughed at or whatever. So you just try to look at them and see if you can recognize the patterns. And if you do it with somebody, which I recommend, that's done this work before, why they will be more alert for the patterns and probably help you see them. So that's the first step. The second half is the indirect method, where we make a list of all our resistance behaviors, and then we can go through these resistance behaviors, and for each resistance behavior, try to see what script it would be designed to prevent. And so I had a resistance behavior, and I checked if I have a script list, if I was able to cover the list of 1 or more scripts, then I checked to see if the resistance behavior would be useful to prevent that. Okay, and if I do, then I've got a lax. I've got a script event, and I've got a resistance behavior that belongs to it. Okay? And if I don't have a script event that it corresponds to, well, then nonetheless, I put down the resistance behavior that I see myself continuously engaging in. And eventually, I have a list of the resistance behaviors, and some of them may agree with some scripts or not. But the process of looking at my resistance behaviors, then if I go back and look at my script list again, it may become clear. Sometimes it becomes clear the second time through the script list to say, oh yeah, that's what that is. Now, the resistance behavior corresponds to this one today. I was trying to be seen, The reason I'm always a clown is because I'm trying to be seen, and this event, and this event, and this event are all about not being seen or whatever. You get what I'm saying?
And lots of times, at least in my experience, I've had many resistance behaviors for the same script. I just try a lot of different things to not have that script read.
That's true. Now, the end result that we want to come up with is a list of 1 or more scripts and 1 or more resistance behaviors, but the thing that we know must be true is that every script must have at least 1 resistance behavior that's designed to prevent it, because all our scripts will have resistance behaviors. And every resistance behavior must have at least 1 script that's designed to prevent. And the resistance behaviors are really not that hard to discover. I mean, these are things that we really compulsively do that anybody can tell us about, that we compulsively do that don't work. I was talking with a gal this morning after the morning meeting. She was talking about who she could get to work her list with. And I said, well, I got a good idea. Why don't you ask your partner? Tell me she didn't you. But why don't you ask your partner what all your resistance behaviors are? Because she'll know them immediately. And she'll know all the stupid things. So ask her, tell me all the stupid things I do to you that don't work, but I do them anyway. And she said, well, no, if I do that, then all my scripts will come up. And she said, yeah, that's great. So you ask her for the list of all the resistance behavior, and every time a script comes up, write that down on the other column. You probably get through this thing in about 10 minutes, and then go ask your mother. So that gives you a sense about what's going on. And I think we may have a new method, but I don't know if we're strong enough to deal with it.
Oh my God.
But that's the game, you see. And if you ask your friends, they will be able to confirm your resistance behaviors. They know them better than you often. Now, you need to pick a person to do it with, and if you pick a person to read yours to, it does not mean that they have to pick you to read theirs to. Each person reads and does the work with whoever they feel comfortable with. So it's not a two-way street. This often takes an hour and 15 minutes, something like that, to do this, maybe an hour and a half at the most, so that's the kind of time you need to set aside. What else can I say about it? You won't, the new people will not finish these, either list or both lists this week. You may have, may not be able to have any success at all, but it's well worth the exercise to have that list of emotional events and to have the list of what you think are resistant behaviors. And even if you haven't been able to make much progress with it, when you share about it next week, you will hear things that will trigger things, and you will find them. But don't panic and have a script event over not having a match set of perfect lists. Underlying every script is the "I'll never be good enough" script. So be aware of that. And you can see why, because my script, for instance, was that I will never be accepted. Okay? But you can add, the real script is I will never be accepted because I'm not good enough and I'll be thrown away and I'll die. Okay? That's my real script. Okay? And that always happens, I will always be ignored and treated indifferent because I'm not good enough and I'll be thrown away and I'll die. Okay? So there's a I will never be good enough script. Bottom line under all of these. And but we have had a few people, 3, 4, 5 people over the years that was their only script. I mean, they just totally afraid that they won't be good enough. There's no other specifics than that. It's just radiating, never be good enough. And 10,000 things. So be aware of that under it all is I'll never be good enough. So you can cheat and put I'll never be good enough on your script list right now. And it might be a place to start, because then you can start thinking of all the things that you do to try to appear to be good enough, like working 40-hour or 80-hour, 100-hour weeks or whatever, You can cheat and put that one down now because it will show up. Cheating's okay.
I noticed you put a rejection being bottom line of a lot of the scripts, and I think when I first did the script work, I put I'll always be rejected, but now I'm kind of rethinking that, thinking that if that's the bottom line of a lot of them, then it's really not a pertinent script.
That's not the script. That's what happens. It's all I'm going to be thrown away. Okay, the fear is that I'm going to be thrown away. And outside the tribe used to be dead. Okay, so it's all about being thrown away. And if you're thrown away, it's because you're not good enough, right? You're not a keeper. Oh well, or a keeper. Well, the limit was 18 inches, and you were 14 back in the water. Yeah.
If you're a fish, it's a good thing.
Yeah. But not for the fishermen. Going back in, there's a shark down there. Okay. Questions, feedback, anything at all? This is the important metric.
I was just going to say, because I'm so black and white, is there like a list of all of them? I mean, I have my sister, so she's like,
list of all the scripts.
as everybody knows, she has a world of information. But so that, let's say I think of something that I had a glitch, and I put it down, but I don't really know where it fits or whatever, in both sides.
That's why you have a sister.
And a friend.
And a friend. You don't need to do it with your sister, but do it with anybody that you feel led to. The new people, you would be advised to do it with somebody who's done the work one time, and that's why we have the phone list, and you can look around. How many people have done this work more than 3 times? Okay? Let's get some names.
Can I just say too, you'll know when you get your script, because there was a long time where I'd hear, oh, this or that, or people would say it that way, but then someone else say something, you'll go, that's exactly what it is, you'll get that feeling where you know.
Yeah, your kid has been hearing this script for lifetimes, and there is a dialogue.
Like for me, I had one, people don't like me, but that wasn't really, like mine is really people hate me. And I was like, oh, that's totally it. Like you'll know, you'll go, okay, that's what's going on.
Yeah. Mine was somebody would say, oh, I will never be valued, and I said, that's not it. And when I was 9, she said, the pain will never be valued, and I could feel it. It was what I had to say with people never listening.
bring a pen and paper with you during the week and watch what your mind says to yourself. Because the dialogue's always going on.
Oh, I know that.
Whenever you're in emotion, ask yourself what you're afraid of. We'll start a 10-step inventory type of thing, practice in a week or two, but right now, whenever you find yourself in emotion, ask yourself what you're afraid of. Because it's your script. And whenever you find yourself doing something stupid compulsively, ask yourself what you're trying to prevent. It's that simple. It's not, again, I'm very aware of the difference between simple and easy, but this is not rocket science.
Is there a suggestion that you'd like to make to people that have done this work a lot of times and maybe feel like they've done a list?
People who have done this work before, there's no need to review the same list of 10 things. You might make a list of the 10 worst emotional events since the last time you did it. And see how that compares and see how much lighter it is. There's no need to. Or you might take the same 10 things if they haven't been satisfactory for you and read them to somebody else who might have more insight. Any other suggestions from people who've done this?
So that's just to see if you have any new scripts that have come up or which ones are operating more, like to do the list of the ones in the last year or 6 months or however.
Or just to reaffirm that, these are my scripts, and these are my resistance behaviors, and yes, this is a matched list. The fact is that you're going to need that list of scripts and resistance behaviors, and you may as well rederive it just to make sure that you're still consistent with that. It just reaffirms it. I would like you to not drag out an old list. I would like you to build a new list, bring it to the front of your head, and have something active to go in here, because you may discover that some's gone away. And probably there is a primary script in the sense that it is the one which is causing you the most misery today, okay? It will be over the next 8 weeks, You may will get real clear on that one. That script and that resistance. You don't need to work on them all, but having one script that's causing you a bunch of misery and seeing the resistance behavior stuff, that is all in the world you need to do this work, because what works for one works for all. So the goal is, I would say, try to find, look at your list and see what's been going on in your life recently for the people who've just done this before, and see which one it is this time.
And I think when I first did the list, it was so easy to write the 10 emotional things. And then when I went over those with Christy, it was just, she would, give, well, how about I'll never do it? No, and there, or I'll always, and it would help trigger that. Because I had, like, when my mom died, it's like, well, you always be abandoned. No, I didn't say that. I'll always be left by those I love. Yes. That's it. I mean, so it was.
By the way, there are some very painful events that were not emotional. I mean, death of a loved one is painful, okay? But it's not necessarily emotional unless you go into, dramatic grieving over it. So be aware that, for instance, the fact that a loved one died was a painful event, but it needn't have been a script event unless you got very emotional about it.
If you felt abandoned.
Yeah, if you felt abandoned or discarded, or if you had feelings something about that, pain is pain, and pain is pain, and sad is sad, and happy is happy. And those are real, and that's not what we're talking about here. So we don't need to try to keep that in mind, and try to make that distinction between whether you were in emotion or just having a feeling.
If you're, when it comes to addiction, if you're reaching for whatever, through alcohol, drugs, whatever, is there a way to tie that to help you figure out the script? Or?
It's just the same as being in emotion. If you're reaching for any of the anesthetics, ask yourself what you're afraid of.
One of my resistance behaviors is to stuff things, and so for me, it was very difficult to come up with my list. And so your suggestion
about asking my husband or my mother.
You've got whatever it takes to do that, go for it, Eddie. I'm with you. I'm with you. People know your resistance behaviors. You know, people that I know all the resistance behaviors of the people that are around this community. I don't know all the scripts because it's not clear what they're afraid of, what to prevent. I know what sort of script they have. You know. And just to sharpen you, for those of you who are in 12-step programs, listen to the sharing. It'll whet your ability to recognize script and resistance behavior, because that's all we're sharing about is resistance behavior and scripts. All the drama that goes on here that they talk about, this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and I did this, and I did that. You know. So you can sit, I go to the morning meeting and keep my script awareness. Very precise.
And since this workshop is specifically for script, for those people who have done the work before, I'm going to have at my house, I'm going to bring a flyer next week because the kid work is a different method. But on Wednesday nights from 6 to 7, it's going to be a drop-in type thing. There's no like time commitment to how many times you show up, and it's just like refresh, you know, to just stay in the consciousness of the kid work. And I'll bring a flyer. It'll be from like 6 to 7. It will be from 6 to 7. That way it allows us time to get over here to meditation on Wednesday night too, which is one of the suggestions, of the 3 suggestions.
Yeah,
so it'll work for that.
I'm so delighted that that's going to happen.
Yeah, because it's 2 completely different methods,
They are.
you know.
We'll do a kid group in the spring. In January, there'll be a kid group for those of you who want to do that. So we'll do that work then. But before we had them together, because they are closely related. But if you wind up with 12 steps of this and 7 of this and 3 of that, and you're going to people, you know, way too much stuff in one workshop. So we're really trying to get focused and intense now so we can tear these things up. So, but yeah, I'm just so happy that happened. You know, when the work is over, you need to keep doing the work, because what you're going to get here is the information. But you know, support groups and practice and all that is very important. What else?
Let's share something that sounds interesting. Is just how different everybody's script is, because in the sharing here, I'll hear people share about stuff that doesn't do anything for me. I'll see somebody will say something, and I take a glitch right when they're sharing, and it's actually helped me with managing people. As people work for me, and there was a point where this girl was so upset. Finally, I said, "What is your worst fear?" Assuming she's afraid she'd get fired. And she said, "Well, I'll get it wrong." And I cracked up because I said, "So getting fired and walking out the door does not scare you?" She said, No, I can care less if I got fired." You know, but she was so upset.
I'm good enough. I can always get it.
Yeah. She said that. I'm good at a job. She was just that I'm wrong. And so I made it a point to tell her that she's right all the time. And every time I do, I can see her stand up and feel better. You know, and I actually, when I interview people, I ask them, "What's your biggest fear?" And they're going to look at me like, "What a weird question." But I get a sense of, you know,
We'll talk about that a bit later, but yeah, we empathize. Our kids empathize with people. Very often, if I have a script that's very active and I see somebody in a situation which may or may not be a script read for them, may have nothing to do with them at all, but if it's a situation in which I would be afraid that I would get my script read, I will get all concerned and maybe dash over there and start taking care of stuff that there's nothing going on, you know, that kind of thing. But, well, we don't ever run over, so let's get back for a minute. Welcome aboard, everybody. Next class is at 3 next Sunday. Okay, thanks for coming. Love y'all.
Thank you.